Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Chani Sims, and I'm the co-founder for Meta Defense Labs and founder for CISO. We are hosting the International Women's Day webinars under the CISO platform to highlight the brilliant women in cybersecurity. And today we got Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And so we're kind of, it's 3 o'clock, did you say, in US?
Yeah, it's about 3 in the afternoon here in not so sunny Milwaukee.
It's dark here, it's 8 o'clock at night. So thank you for joining, and it's lovely to have you. Just to give you a quick background about CISO, it's an open give back platform to create emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders. That's why the catchphrase, but it's open for women and men both. And if you look at the she on the logo, it's SNH capital, that means she and he both. So why we created this is kind of out of my own frustrations, because I've seen the challenges around and the gaps in cybersecurity skills shortage. I think we have about 4 million globally skill shortage. And we have a problem of diversity. There's not enough diverse security professionals in the industry. And there's a leadership gap. A lot of the problems happen at the workplace due to lack of confidence, communication, and lack of leadership skills. And what I thought was, what if we create a platform where we can teach people all the soft skills they need and also support each other so that people understand them better, as well as they're more emotionally intelligent, which is more self-aware, and they can also put themselves in other people's shoes and have empathy and create better leaders so that we don't have to go through these different cultural challenges we have today, and also teach them the soft skills, because some of the security professionals, they could be really good at something, but they might not be able to communicate things properly. So that's where, talking tech to business challenges come in. And so having all that in mind, I created the boot camp, which is a 5-day boot camp that teaches everyone around cybersecurity, leadership, personal development, emotional intelligence. That's how it started in 2018. Then we moved on to hosting meetups, monthly mentoring calls, and monthly mentoring calls, we run it on every third Tuesday of the month. Currently, it's sponsored by Meta Defense Labs, my company. So we are a cybersecurity company. We started as a pen testing company. Now we rolled into becoming a certification body for UK accredited cyber essentials scheme as well. And so CISO been running since 2018. Now, with the current climate, we've decided to go virtual. So we're planning to host a virtual boot camp, which is the 5-day boot camp, but going virtual in summer. And we're also planning to host a virtual meetup in May. So everyone can join, really. You can share. And it's to create a friendly community that supports each other, and it's a global community as well. So we got different chapters, and that's kind of what we tried to do: create these emotionally intelligent cybersecurities that the CISOs need in our organizations. And a little bit of myself, I've been in the industry about 17 years. I started as an IBM engineer, trained up to be an infrastructure specialist, then specializing in security, and moving on to doing consultancy, and now then forming Meta Defense Labs with 2 other partners. And now I work as a virtual CISO, helping companies to build cyber resilience, cultural transformation. And so that's about me. I would like to ask about how you got to where you are today, your journey, who helped you, and what you do now, and any interesting projects.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. I hadn't planned to do this way, but we'll jump in. I'm just gonna pull up kind of my first intro here.
Sure.
So a little bit about me. So first of all, I'm a hacker and a researcher. And what I tell people is, I have people come to me all the time. They ask me, well, how did you become a hacker? And my answer to them really is, well, I didn't become one. I was born one. Since I was 4 years old, I was always that kid that liked to take all my toys apart, and I like to see how they worked, and cobble things together to make them work differently. And then when I was about 12, I got, well, when I was a little bit younger than 12, I got a job as a paper carrier deliverer. I went and delivered newspapers, and saved up enough money and bought myself a computer when I was 12. And this is back now. I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but it's 1989, and I'm 12 years old, and buy myself a computer. Like, people back then, there weren't many people that had personal computers in their homes. Like, that was still a very new concept. And so I bought this computer. My family didn't have one. But I had one there in my bedroom. And I taught myself basic programming. And later I got into some of the online communities, did a little bit with BBSs, but then got into an online community called Prodigy. That was back in the day, at least here in the US. I don't think it was global, but it was one of these dial-up services, kind of like America Online was another one that people might recognize. But you dialed up to this service, and they had different activities and things you could do. You could interact with different people. And one of the things you could do was you could play games, but it was kind of a pay as you go. You had a subscription fee, but then there were what today we call them in-app purchases, right? You did that within this, this community. And I, as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, figured out how to bypass that. Taught myself a lot about modem communications and figured it out. And long story short, I was able to do certain things that I was probably supposed to have paid for that I didn't.
Sounds like my husband. He's laughing on the side, listening to you.
So, it's, but I never really saw it as a career. So when I went to university, it was for pre-med. I was going to be a doctor. And then after about 3 semesters of college level chemistry, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, this is not what I want to do. And so I needed to find a new major, discovered that the school I was at had a computer science degree. And I started reading on, okay, what is that all about? Okay, it's programming. Well, I already know how to program. I could do this. And so I started a computer science degree. And at that point, this was during like the quote unquote .com boom, when like everybody and anybody was trying to put their presence out on the internet. And so I was able to get a job while I was still attending the university. I had a full-time job programming for a large financial technologies firm. And I did that for about 9 years before I was approached by someone from their security team, a woman that I had worked with her before on numerous projects. And she came to me and asked me, hey, do you want to join our security test team, which was basically their penetration testing team? And I looked at her, I said, I don't know how to do that. I've never done pen testing. And she looked at me and she goes, you're smart. You'll figure it out. That's why I want you. So, okay. I joined the team. I ended up being the leader of that team. I was a manager for a number of years before I left that organization. Finally I jumped into consulting because I'd been in that organization 15 years. I wanted to see what the rest of the world was doing. Got into consulting, started at, more in like the very low level pen testing, but really progressed. My focus was always application security. I mean, I was a former developer. And so, I progressed into higher level consulting roles where at one point in one organization, I led their program services practice, which was really working with senior and executive level management on how do you establish an application security program across your entire enterprise and doing work like that. And then I started working for a value-added reseller, and same thing there. Most of the conversations I was having were with high-level, senior and executives on then just overall security strategy. but you know, through the latter years of all that, I've also been very much a security advocate. I get out and speak quite often at various conferences. I like to get out, share my ideas. I blog. I'm working on a book right now. I do a lot of that kind of thought sharing. And recently I started a job for a company called Sneak. And my role now is officially an application security advocate, meaning that is my job, is to get out and interact with the community, talk about what we're doing in application security, how to get better, how to do things within DevSecOps better, and so forth. But yeah, so throughout a lot of that career, I've been in leadership positions. I've been working with high-level leaders. I've been responsible for building a number of teams from the ground up where there was nothing. I've definitely been very fortunate to work with some really wonderful people, and to be part of some very, very successful teams in the consulting space, in the reseller space, you name it. And so, you know, from that perspective, I've got just a lot of thankfully successful track record in developing and leading powerful teams. And Johnny, you're muted.
I know I always do this. Did you have mentors along your career path to help you and guide you and to do the right thing or right choices, make the right choices?
Yeah, I have. You know, I mentioned that that manager that approached me to join the security test team. You know, she was a very good mentor for me. You know, I reported to her for a number of years, and you know, mentors don't always have to be your boss, but in this case, it was. And you know, she and I would quite often. She was a smoker, and this was, you know, after you couldn't smoke in the office anymore, so we would go out back and we would have regular conversations while she was on her smoke break. We would just go out to where they had the smoking area, and we would talk about what was going on. And she gave me a lot of coaching, not only in terms of like how to navigate the organization and how to deal with some of that, but also really just her focus on how she dealt with people was really useful to me. I had another manager later on when I was in the consulting world who was terrific with helping me overcome imposter syndrome. In fact, for those that follow me on Twitter, I've got a pin to the top of my Twitter profile is a lengthy Twitter thread talking about that exact situation. And it has to do with, you know, speaking at my first conference and getting some really nasty feedback from someone on the team, and how, you know, that really fed into my imposter syndrome and some of the stuff that this manager did to really help me through that, help me see the value in what I was doing. And I mean, he and I were still in contact today. I was just text messaging him a couple days ago. So, you know, he's always been a really good mentor for me. And then even in my last job, I had a vice president that I worked with a lot. She was there as part of the hiring process when they brought me in, and she and I ended up developing a pretty strong relationship while I was there. She, again, helped me not just navigate, again, the organization. She definitely was good for that, but also really just sort of helped me see what was important to me, what made sense, really identify where I wanted to go professionally, and help me kind of map out how to get there.
Great. And how do you go on about getting these different talks at different places? Do you apply, or does people invite you?
It's a little bit of, there's a few different ways. So in some cases, a lot of the cases, yeah, it's I write a talk based on research I'm doing or projects I'm working on, and I submit that to a call for papers. Sometimes I do have conferences that reach out to me and will ask me to speak at their conference. And then in some cases, even my employers are sponsoring a conference where the sponsorship does include a speaking slot. And so, you know, in those cases too, those will be, you know, those aren't I don't bring vendor presentations to those. Those are things where I'm still presenting thought leadership. So, you had kind of mentioned before some of the projects I'm working on. Some of the big things that I've been doing lately around AppSec in general. One of the big ones I'm talking about right now is just how we bring threat modeling into DevSecOps and that approach. But I also have some higher level talks. I do get into, since we're talking emotional intelligence, one of the talks that I do is really centered around helping security practitioners understand how do you go before the executives and before the board and really speak to them effectively and talk to them in ways that's going to motivate them to take action and want to work with you to approve your initiatives and make them happen. And then the last one that a lot of people have seen if they're following me on social media lately is I've been doing a lot of research in deepfake technology. So this is, artificial media is being created with deep learning neural networks, very, very realistic videos in some cases. It's got
It's
a lot
scary,
of
isn't
different
it?
implications. What's that?
It's quite scary, deepfakes, and I've been watching some of the stuff as well. I'm thinking, oh, where are we going with this? It's really scary.
There's a lot of scary implications to it. There's a lot of question right now in terms of just legalities and privacy laws and things of that nature too. There's a lot of policy concern. So yeah, there's definitely threats and there's a lot of just unknown right now around it.
Mhm. See, you come from a software development background. I also did a computer science degree, and I hated coding. Hello Java was like just my nightmare stuff. I did it, but it was just not something I really enjoyed at the time. Probably because the way it was taught, I don't know. Um, but then you went into research. I've tried the hacking and the other things, and I'm now gone into more GRC side of things, virtual CISO, compliance, data protection. But
Sure.
I do want to go into research again. So I'm retraining myself to learn new hacking techniques and things like that. What kind of advice would you give to a research, someone who wants to back into research or someone who's new to getting into research?
So this is actually a really timely question because it's something that's actually happened to me. So yeah, I was a pen tester for a long time. I got away from it. Like I told you, I was working with seniors and executives on AppSec programs. And I mean, that was about as technical as I got was threat modeling, okay, which isn't a very technical necessarily way to go.
Mm.
But most of what I was doing was very high level organizational stuff. And so I've kind of gotten back into it now. And what my most critical piece of advice that I could give anybody is find that thing that you're really curious about or you're really passionate about or just seems really neat that you want to understand and just dig in. You can go find people who can help you with it. There's always going to be resources out there that you can explore. That's how I got into deep fakes. Like I saw a couple years ago, Jordan Peele did this video where they deep faked Barack Obama, and they had Barack Obama talk. I think he called Donald Trump an idiot or something, and he was picking on Ben Carson and everything. All this stuff that Barack Obama would never say in public.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fascinated me, and I started. I didn't know anything about deep learning, machine learning, AI. I knew nothing. Like all I knew is that was what everybody was talking about was like this big, cool new thing in cybersecurity. And so I started digging into deepfakes specifically. And as it's gone, initially I looked more into like the threats and what was the technology capable of. Well, the last couple months, in fact, the last month in particular, I've been actually generating my own. I got into the software of it and I've got some hardware that's helped me out. And I actually posted one of the results to YouTube. Is it as awesome and believable as what we see out there, like the Jordan Peele video? No, it's very clear that, it's a deep fake, but But through doing that, to me, it wasn't about being able to create that video. I mean, yeah, you want to be able to generate that video, want it to be as realistic as possible, but it was about learning about how this stuff is made, learning what the limitations are. Like, I had been hearing so much about how deepfakes were this horrible, horrible thing. Everybody was worried about all these implications. And yeah, all of that's real, but they're not as easy to generate as everybody makes it sound like. And I've learned that just by trying to do it myself, like seeing and understanding now what it takes to actually create one, just to even get it to create. And then now trying to make it actually so good that it's believable. You start to see what the limitations are. But more importantly than even that, I've learned how a lot of machine learning works. I've learned how deep learning functions. I just attended a couple talks for NVIDIA, just had their GPU technology conference. And so I went to some talks on that where they were talking specifically about how this deep learning plays into things in the cybersecurity world. And so, it's fascinating now that I've been able to gain that understanding.
Wow. Oh, I'm going to shut up and stop asking questions and leave them for later. I'll let you carry on with your presentation.
Okay, well, good.
Good.
So, as I said, I've been in leadership for a number of years. If we want to be exact about it, I think it's been about 12 now. And I've seen a lot of different environments. I worked in an environment where I was managing a global team where they were in various offices. Some were local to me, some were around the country. I had other managers that reported to me. I've worked in fully remote teams, which of course, today, right now, given our current situation with coronavirus, there's a lot of managers who are getting educated in that really fast. How do you manage a remote team? And so I've seen a lot of different things. And as I mentioned, I've had the opportunity, I've been very fortunate to be able to build some teams from the ground up, or to build out teams that were very small into very, large, powerful teams. And they've been very successful. One of the things that I remember most, though, was at a job. It was in the consulting world. And I had come in as a managing consultant, and it was literally a new position that they had created. And so I'm a managing consultant, but I wasn't managing anybody. My job was to come in and build this team. And over time, I hired people, and we transferred different people in and whatnot. And I built a really strong, really tight-knit team. And I mean, I had success before, and I had teams who I was very close with. And it's always difficult when you leave one job and you go to another, and you're leaving great people behind. That's never easy to do. But so when I left this job, you always kind of do that on your last day. You send that email out and, hey, you know what? It's been great working with you. Here's my contact information. Give them something inspirational to look forward to. So I did that. And it was a really emotional day for me. Like, leaving that team that I had seen grow from nothing into this flourishing, very, very strong team. It was a very pride felt moment for me. And, what I remember most about that day, more than anything else, and it has stuck with me, is I sent that email, and I got a couple of different replies back, of course. But the one reply I got back that I really remember was from an individual who I had hired into the team. It was his first security role. He had never been in security before. I don't remember now what he was doing before. I think like retail or something. And, I coached him along. We mentored him up. He learned how to become a pen tester, and he was a really good application security consultant by the time I was leaving. And he sent me an email, and all it said in it was what you see here on the screen: "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And anybody who's seen the movie Dead Poets Society knows that Robin Williams' character wanted his class, he was a professor, wanted his class to refer to him as "Oh, Captain, my Captain." It's a quote from a poem. And so at the end of the movie, when he's being run out of this school, they fired him because of some stuff that occurred. And so the administration's not real happy with him. And he comes in, he collects his stuff, and he walks out of the classroom on the last day. And what you see is what in that scene is what's here. Students from his class stand up on their desks and they yell out, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And it was just their way of saluting him and saying, like, look, you really made an impact on our lives. And so to get that kind of compliment from somebody who worked for me in a professional environment, right? Like, I mean, this wasn't necessarily, we don't always look at our professional environments as being life-changing events for us necessarily. To have him say that was, like, to me, the sign that I had really succeeded as a leader. Like, that told me that he was telling me I had impacted his life in such a significant way that this was the thing he thought of. And so that's guided me ever since. Like, as a leader, even just as, and when I say leader, I don't necessarily mean a manager, right? I mean a person who is able to drive and inspire other people. So the title of this talk is, leaders inspire, bosses demand. And I believe in that. I believe good leaders inspire people to be better. Bosses tell people what to do. And in fact, anyone who's ever worked on one of my teams will tell you I have a couple rules. First is they don't call me boss. I don't like that term. I think it has a horrible connotation. I am not a boss. I am not bossy, I hope. I try not to be, because that's not who I am. And so that's my first rule. The second rule is I never allow them to say they work for me, and I never say they work for me. They don't. They work for the company. They work with me. I am there to lead them. I am not, quote unquote, above them. I am the assigned leader for that team, which means that, yes, I do have, as a manager, certain roles, functions, things I'm supposed to do. We all understand that. But my role is really to be a leader. And so if I fast forward now a number of years, I was being interviewed for a director role at a job. And I remember really clearly one of the questions that I was asked by the hiring manager. And it was simply, as a leader, what do you want to be known for? Now, we've all gotten questions like this from HR or hiring managers, kind of that ethereal question. But it caught me a little off guard, and I had to think about it. And I started thinking back on that story of the "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And so my response to him was very simply, I want to be inspirational. When I walk out of a job after years of leading people, the thing I want more than anything is to know that I've somehow inspired them to do something new, to do something different, to do something better. And that, to me, is what a leader is there to do. So what I want to present is really just what I see as some of the key characteristics in how leaders, whether they're managers, whether they're quote unquote individual contributors, whatever your role is, you can be a leader. But here's how you do it. These are the characteristics that I think are important. First and foremost, when I talk to people about being a leader, it's you need to be visionary. There are two types of leadership as I look at it. There's that tactical leadership and there's visionary leadership. Tactical leadership is what we see all too often with people who are very short-sighted. They are very focused on tasks at hand. They see a situation, they go after it, and that can be very good in the right role. Sometimes that tactical leadership is needed. But the problem with tactical leadership is if that's all you have, if that's all you can bring to the table is how to address these situations in the here and now, it leads to confusion, frustration, and ultimately dysfunction. When I talk about being visionary as a leader, if I'm going to be a leader, I need to be able to think big. I need to be able to think 3 to 5 years out. I need to have a vision of not what we're going to look like in 6 months. What is the world going to look like? What is the team going to look like? What is the team going to be doing 3, 5 years down the road? I need to set up that vision and I need to share it with the team, and I need to be consistently managing to that. And this is something we see in different organizations where they go after and they want to write a vision and they write a mission statement. This is why they do it. Because when you have people who you work with who understand the bigger picture, they know what they're trying to accomplish in the long term, they know where things are headed. Now they start to believe. They don't just, it's not just coming to work every day to knock out some tasks and go home. They actually understand how the things they're doing are accomplishing that mission. And what that does is now they're able to bring their perspective. They're able to offer their own ideas. They're able to offer their own interpretations. They're able to see things and contribute in a way that's meaningful to them, but also brings value to your organization. So when you as a leader can be visionary, now everybody is marching to that same tune, right? They all understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and at and while they may have different ways that they see for how to get there, they're all trying to get to the same end point. And so when you get to that end point, you all know it together. And then it's a constant journey, right? It's always evolving, but this is what it means to be visionary. Now, the story I always tell with being visionary is you have to be responsibly visionary. You need to be able to execute. The flip side of this is there are those managers or those leaders, whatever you want to call them, who are very visionary, but can't execute. So you have to have this mix of tactical and visionary leadership. The story I share in terms of this is when I was young and I was working as a help desk. So if I go back to what I was telling you before about being in a computer science role, my first job before I even got that programming role was working in help desk. And I worked for this company that made networking software for Windows 3.1, which did not come inherently with networking built in. And TCP/IP, even when you got into Windows 3.1.1, there was no TCP/IP. You had to have separate software to do that. And that was what we wrote. But as the world was evolving, we needed to expand. And we had a CEO who was very visionary. He saw where the world was going in terms of the internet, and in particular, corporate intranets. So think about that internal website that we all have now in our organizations. They're kind of ubiquitous. They weren't at the time. And he saw that the world was going there. And he put a lot of R&D into product development. How are we going to create a product that addresses this space? And he centered all that R&D around creating a web server and then all of the supporting materials that would go into that web server where you could build your corporate intranet. But everything was focused around, we're going to build this web server. 2 months before we had our official launch for that web server software, Microsoft released Windows NT 4. Anyone who remembers when Microsoft Windows NT 4 was released, it came with the first version of IIS. Microsoft just completely preempted everything that we did. People no longer were going to buy a separate web server software when Microsoft was coming with it, at least not for corporate intranets, not at that time. Sure, nowadays we do, and we understand there's specialized things like Nginx and everything else that we'll buy. But at that time, trying to address that market, that was a death nail for us. And indeed, that started the end of that organization. And it was simply because he had a great vision, but his execution was flawed. He didn't do the market research. He didn't know. He wasn't aware that Microsoft was doing this R&D around creating their own web server and that was going to be a part of Windows. He wasn't tuned into the user groups and things that would have given him that information. So visionary is good, but you do need to be able to tactically execute behind it. The next thing is all about empowering people. And these sound like buzzwords because they are. They're things that we hear a lot in, if you go to any leadership class, or you'll hear about this, but what does it really mean to empower people? How do we empower people? And for me, one of the key things, if I want to empower somebody, I need to be able to recognize potential. So if I'm looking at my team and I'm looking at the things they're capable of, I don't sit around and wait for them to demonstrate a specific skill. I look for the people I think can develop that skill, and I look to put them in situations that force them to find that skill within themselves and develop it. So for instance, if I'm looking to promote somebody into a management role, well, yeah, maybe if they were a team lead already, they have some experience kind of managing people, but there's a lot of skills there that they don't get to demonstrate as part of their daily work. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, they've never been a manager before, so I can't move them into management. That doesn't work. And so it's recognizing, okay, I see these other aspects that are not specifically management tasks that they're doing, but they demonstrate the type of thinking or the type of initiative and other things that I look for that I know are going to make a good leader. I can teach them all the skills about, the nitty gritty about how to be a manager, but I'm looking for their potential. What are those things that tell me this person can do this job if I put them in a situation where that job is theirs? And then it's just a matter of taking a risk on them and investing in their success. So I'm going to take that risk on this person who's never been a manager before, but they show me certain things that are really important that I know from my personal experience will help them be a good manager. I'm going to put them in that role, and then I'm going to support them in it. I'm going to give them the training. I'm going to support them with mentors and so forth, people that they can turn to, because now that helps them build that skill set. I've now invested in my people. I've shown them that I really actually do promote from within. I don't just throw that out there as, hey, we promote from within, but certain levels of management, yeah, we have to, if you're going to be a director, you have to have managing people. You have to have managed managers before, or whatever, those types of things that we hear in the market space all too often. No, I want to bring my people. I want to see the people who've been a part of this team, who understand my organization, who've been there, who've done it. They're the ones I want to see grow into those positions. I don't want to go hire from the outside. That's an unknown. I want to look for the people. I want to understand who's got that potential, and I want to bring them forward. When I do that, the message that sends to the team is that I believe in you, that I see that even though you might not have had the opportunity to show that skill, that there's a good chance you have skills that we can develop. And that sending that message to the people that you work with is so powerful. And it is so motivating. And it's not just motivating for the person that you bring into that new role. Other people within the team now see that that's your way of how you approach managing that team. And now they understand that they have that same opportunity, that they can find those niche areas that they excel in, and they can leverage what they enjoy doing or what they feel they're good at, and that you'll see that and that you'll use that to grow their careers, which is what everybody wants at the end of the day. We all want to grow our careers. So you start to inspire people when you empower them. And that is so crucial. And unfortunately, it's something that we miss. I can tell many stories, some that have impacted me, of managers who didn't understand my potential, where I left one organization, went to another, and it was kind of that, a little bit of an affirming moment when you get to go back to that manager later and tell them what you're doing. You meet them at a conference or something. You say, yeah, I remember that thing that you said I wasn't qualified to do. I got hired out of your job to go there to do exactly that. And I'm excelling and I'm winning. And that's not what you want to have happen as a manager. You don't want to see your people leave and go do the thing that you didn't think they could do somewhere else. So inspire them, show them that you believe in what they can do, and recognize that potential. Don't wait for them to demonstrate the skill, give them the opportunity, say, hey, I'm going to take a risk on you. I'm going to put you in this position. You're going to sink or you're going to swim. I'm going to support you. And if you can swim and you can show me you can get to the other side, then I've just gained a really powerful new resource. And that's immeasurable. The next thing, this gets lost way too often on leaders. And that is the idea of being humble, having humility, and affirming the people that you work with. So when I talk about this, from a leadership perspective, you cannot let your ego drive your leadership style. I think many of us have worked with managers who we know their ego kind of drives the show, right? You have a skip level meeting with their manager and they get offended or they get nervous and they want to know everything you talked about. That's not the point of what a skip level is for. A skip level is so I can go to that next level and have a confidential conversation. I encourage people who work on teams with me to do that. I want them to go have that conversation because I want them to have that ability to feel that they can have these open conversations. I'm not there to, again, like I said before, I'm not above anybody. As a leader, I need to accept that the people that I'm working with who are part of that team, they're all smarter than me. They all know more about the technical details of that job than I ever will. That's why I hire them. That's who I hire. I hire the people who know the stuff I don't know. Because if I knew it, I wouldn't necessarily need to hire those people. I'm not hiring warm bodies to push buttons. I'm hiring people who can contribute a powerful mental capability, who have skills, who have knowledge that augments everything I want to do organizationally. Now, I have to lead from the perspective of what the organization needs. That's what I'm doing as a leader. But I accept that. I accept that those people will be smarter than me. My very first manager, when I got that role, that first programming job, so it wasn't my direct manager, it was up above. I was reporting to a manager, and I think he was a vice president. You know, I remember very clearly, very early on, he said to us that exact line that, you know, look, you're all the smart individuals. You tell me what you need or what we should do. And if you can justify it to me, then I know what decisions to make. That's what being a leader is all about. Now, on the flip side of that, you need to celebrate those successes. When someone comes to you with an idea, when someone delivers something, they bring that information to you, they give you that course of action, you need to celebrate that, not just to the team. Celebrate that to your superiors. Who are you reporting to? If you're reporting to an executive vice president and, you know, someone on the team had this really good idea, make sure that they know. Make sure that executive vice president knows. Get those people in front of that EVP. If they've got a really good idea that they want to present and you think it's worth taking up the chain, don't take it and paraphrase it and parrot it up the next level. Bring those people with you and give them that exposure. Let them be seen by the people above you. It's not going to diminish who you are as a leader. If anything, it's going to establish you as a better leader because it's going to show that you have this strong, truly capable team under that works with you, that, you know, at the end of the day, you count on and is driving all the good decisions that you're making as a leader. So to be a good leader, you've got to be humble. You've got to accept that there are those occasions where people are definitely going to have knowledge and ideas that you didn't have. And that's why they're there. They're there to do that for you. So don't even just allow them to do that. Celebrate it when they do and make sure that they get that credit throughout the organization. The worst thing you could ever do as a leader, and unfortunately, I think many of us, myself included, have had leaders who take credit for things that their people have done. That to me is the cardinal sin of leadership, because nothing will lose you credibility faster with a team then when you allow somebody, you don't have to sit there and say it was your idea, but if you allow those higher levels of management that you report into to believe that this was your idea or that you're responsible, or they, in some company-wide meeting, they celebrate your name without mentioning the names of the people on your team that contributed, that's problematic. That's demotivating for your team. You want, when you go before that all hands meeting and the president of the company is going to announce some great big initiative that your team accomplished, you want that president, you want her to know the names of all of the people that contributed to that and to be able to echo that, because that inspires people to want to continue to grow and do more and bring more to the organization. That's what you're trying to drive from them. So let's get a little more personal now. So I've talked about a lot of things that have to do with the team. And yes, they're personal characteristics, but they're all really team focused. Let's talk about you as a leader. What do you need to do? I talk about this idea of what's your weird. This is not my term, first and foremost. This is a colleague of mine who's is very focused on personal branding, and this is his term. And unfortunately, I should have put his name in the notes because his name is escaping me right now, and I feel horrible about that. Because I really want to give him credit, because he's the one, I saw him speak last year. I got to meet him. He's actually from Wisconsin like me. But he gave me this concept of what's your weird. And when I talk about your weird, I'm talking about being authentically unique. And what do I mean by authentically unique? Find that thing. Every one of us has that thing about us that's just, it's inherent to who we are, and it makes us us, and it makes us different from the rest of the world. Now, I say authentically unique because it has to be something that's there and is part of you. You can't go out and try to invent this. This can't be something that you create from the ground up and just say, I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be known for this. Find that thing that's already there. I mean, you can look at me right now. If you could see me, I'm sitting in my office, and I get comments about this whenever I'm on a video conference, because behind me, I've got my rack of guitars. I've got shelves of old cameras. These are things about me that make me me. I play guitar. I love photography. And they're things that I can make a part of my everyday. You see this little unit. Well, that little lamp is right here next to me at my desk right now. People who know me know that I have this weird fascination with unicorns. I love them. I have unicorn mugs. My coffee mugs are all unicorn themed. It's on every. I have unicorn t-shirts like crazy. It's a thing. It's what people know about me. It's what I enjoy.
I think we are all unicorns in our own way. And I also talk a lot about unicorns,
Yes.
because people do try to find the unicorn. I think authenticity is what makes you a unicorn in some ways.
Yes, it is. Exactly. And that's crucial, because now that humanizes you as a leader, right? A lot of times as leaders, we tend to fall into that when we get assigned to a leadership role, maybe that first management role, whatever. There's this little barrier between us and the individual contributors on the team where we suddenly don't seem human anymore.
It's like some stereotypical box you try to fit into, but it does not really get you anywhere, sort of. I've seen that as well.
That's exactly right. And so by embracing it and letting people see this, I mean, you can't see it on this call, but the unicorn that is here on my desk, when I'm on my other computer, all the people at work, they can see it behind me every day. When I'm on conference calls, they understand it. They see me drinking from my unicorn coffee mugs and everything else. And it becomes something that people know about me, and they're not afraid to talk about it. And it's something that I'm known for, and I'm able to embrace it, and I'm able to use it because now that's something that connects me to them on a more interpersonal level. It's not something that, if I'm this, all they know of me is the business side, you don't get that connection, and that doesn't inspire people to want to line up behind you and help support the things that we're going after from a vision perspective. So finding that thing, and you can use this going upward too. So it's not just the people that are part of your team, but what about the management that you work with? Having that thing that they know about you, it's not something that is going to ever detract from you. Sure, it might be something that becomes humor. Let it be a thing of humor. That's great. The more humor that we have in our jobs, I mean, come on, that's what keeps people going.
It also makes you trust people more because you're seeing the human side of a person in the more personal things than fitting into, oh yes, I'm the manager, I'm this professional figure, that's all you can see. Then you tend to trust people like that less. I don't know, for me, if someone tried to be like, yes, I'm the perfect stereotypical person, I don't trust them. But if someone is more natural, more humorous, and showing the personal side and emotions, that you tend to trust them more.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, because as we're talking about being human, the last thing is find strength in your vulnerability. It is okay as a leader to be vulnerable. Not only is it not a sign of weakness, it can be a sign of strength. When you're stressed about something, it's okay to let your team know that you're really stressed. That's not a bad thing. You don't have to be that superhuman person. If you're frustrated by a message that you're getting from above, you don't have to sit there and pretend like you're all happy about every decision that's being made. Now, you do have to justify why you have to follow that decision and why you have to do things, but that's not necessarily conflicting. You can do both. You can be honest about your feelings and say, you know what? I don't agree with this decision, but here's why this decision was made, and here's why we're going to support it. I do that with my teams all the time. I can go back to that very first security test team, and I guarantee you, if you ask any of the people that were on that team, how often I shared with them when I wasn't happy about a decision that we were forced to, ultimately we had to support anyway. I was open and honest with them about it. I told them when I didn't like it, but I also was very clear with them that, look, this is why the organization has made this decision. Whether I agree with it or not, they have a logical reason why they went this route. This is what we have to do. So it's okay to do that. And people appreciate seeing your vulnerability. And it doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you stronger, because now you've shown yourself to be that trustworthy human, as you were talking about, Chani. Now they understand you're just another person like them. It takes out a lot of what we tend to do as far as dehumanizing those people that sometimes we're in conflict with. Now, I mean, I can give you an extreme example, and I wouldn't recommend doing this in everyday life, but the last job that I left, I had a team I was extremely close with. I really enjoyed working with this team. And the day that I announced to them that I was leaving, we were on a conference call, and I was getting ready to tell them. And I'll tell you what, as I started to utter those words that I was leaving the company, I broke up. I cried. I couldn't even get the words out. They could hear me crying. They understood. Now, do I cry in front of my teams? Not typically. But in that moment, it meant everything to them. And I know this because they came and they told me later, a number of them came and thanked me. Because to them, that showed them, A, I was human. B, it showed them how much they meant to me. And it's good for your teams to understand how much they actually mean to you. And I'm not
talking. That's so true. I mean, I had a similar situation as well when I did my last TEDx talk.
Yeah.
I almost cried in front of a massive audience. and I was really struggling to, continue, because I could feel my throat just tightening up, and I was like praying to God, "Don't cry, idiot! Don't be idiot."
And you know what? People heard it, I'm sure, and
Yeah,
all the more credible. And that's the big thing here, right? You mentioned trust before. It's
yeah,
credibility. How many times do we hear organizations talk about how much they care about their people?
not much.
Deliver that message credibly if you actually show them that you do care at a human level. Show them how much they mean to you, and those messages become all the more powerful, and that will inspire those people to do better and to be better.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've had so many messages just from strangers I've never met, I've never seen them before, just reach out to me appreciating, that, uh, which I felt really vulnerable because I'm talking about something personal, but a lot of people appreciated. Then I got a lot of messages, people appreciating that throughout social media and email, saying how much they, liked it. That's very true. Yeah.
Very, very true. So, with that, I want to invite everybody, please keep the conversation going. I'm always open to hearing your ideas, sharing more about my ideas, answering questions that people have. My contact information is here. You can follow me on Twitter. That is always the easiest way to get in touch with me, Alyssa M_infosec. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
I think I'm following you already. I think
I think you
I'm
are.
so
Yeah.
bad on Twitter, so forgive me if I'm not, but I'll make sure I'm following you.
Nice. But LinkedIn as well, Alyssa M-infosec in this case, dash instead of the underscore. And you can also
Yeah,
visit my
following you.
website, alyssasec.com. So I invite you to get in touch with me any of those ways. Like I said, I'm always happy to talk. I can talk more about the research I'm doing. We can talk more about leadership principles. We can talk about how to amp up your career, your personal brand. You name it. I'm always happy to have conversations and hear your ideas and share my own. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you, CISO, for having me. Johnny, I definitely really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed being able to address the folks today. And then finally, the message here, if you want to join the CISO organization, Johnny, I'll leave this to you.
Thanks. I mean, it's just like perfect. This is exactly what we talk about at CISO all the time. And even in my team also, where like going back to your point about hiring the people that are smarter than you, who can complement your work. And that's so true, because you don't need to hire the people who you want to work under you, but you want to hire the people who are smarter, who are clever, who can tell you how to do things better, right? And that's so true. This is exactly what we talk about at Cheesy. So, how do you be that person? How do you build trust? And how do you have open, authentic, personality in terms of being who you are, really, not having to create someone that you're not. Because I think it's a traditional management style, quite old-fashioned in ways, where people think that if you behave like the professional stereotype boss, or that's how you should be. But I don't believe in that at all, because being authentic and being unique and being open and vulnerable, I think, is make you a better leader than being a boss. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, these are things that we always talk about. So it's really good having you and someone else talking about it. I think that adds so much value. Thank you so much. And I want to ask if there's any questions from the audience.
Hi, Alyssa. Thanks for
Hi.
that inspiring talk. Not so much a question. I just wanted to really say I so agree with what you said about leaders. We should be humble. We should not take credit for what the team did, and just don't let egos get in the way. That can just cause so many problems. And thanks for that talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are people who talk about things like servant leadership and so forth. And I do think that dovetails right into that conversation. It's super important that as leaders, we understand we're there to provide a service to the people that we're working with as much as we are anything else. They're not there to serve us. They work for the organization, as I said. And we're there to make sure that they're equipped, that they're organized, that they understand what their role is and what they're driving toward. And at the end of the day, to really enable their career development. That's part of our job as leaders. That's what we do.
I mean, I'll give you an example where something that happened very recently, just last week, I think. I was really anxious about how this coronavirus is going on, and purely because our families are here in different countries, and we here, and now the travel bans, you can't go and see them, you can't be with them, and my team is spread out all across. So I have we just really recently hired 10 interns, and they're all over the country in Sri Lanka, not even in UK. And then we're here, and then some of us are here, and even they're different places. So I spent about a few days being quite anxious, not being able to sleep and worrying about, what's going to happen if one of my if someone's vulnerable to it and then they get it. And, it was just really it was holding me back because I couldn't focus on it. And what we decided was we decided to have an open discussion around it. We even had a mentoring call around anxiety, talking about it, and then have my team work talking face to face online because they're all over the place, and everyone to explain about how much anxiety levels, and it opened up the conversations. And we did like anxiety test, and then discussed about what we can do to stop, help the anxiety levels.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how much it helped all of us. I mean, I don't have any anxiety at all now. It's helped me so much that even the team just came across being open, saying, actually, I'm also suffering. I'm suffering. Everyone was suffering with anxiety to a certain level, but having that discussion and being open about it really helped us to focus. And even when the government decided that it's curfew, no one works, my team decided, no, we are not going to just sit at home. We are going to work and train and get ourselves skilled up. So that was kind of the motivation levels that we got up just by having that small conversation with everybody. And it was just very open. And that's the power of empowering people, I think.
For sure. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And keep in touch with us, and also join us at the boot camp next summer. I'll send you the details anyway. But it was lovely to have you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.